So this is related to some of these things that, like, these people, like, when it comes to these people, most of these hypnotists and japedo, zero-time pedo mushers, they're not actually allowed to do that type of stuff anymore. So essentially what it's moved to for their intricate blackmailing stuff is that they essentially have Mormon fundies that do most of the authentic enchantment sex slaving stuff. And then they traffic the child here to Tri-Cities. And that this is done by Mormon witches is what they're called. And that they're held to like an expectation by these hypnotist, psychotic pedophile groups that do this stuff. They're held to an expectation of not doing the full methodology. So they traffic the children here. And then the people that know how to do all that stuff, they essentially view those children as outside of the forbidden enchantment child stuff. So essentially, because of this word, these people, they essentially do this finalization of the sex slaving methodology twice. And then essentially the child becomes technically an enchantment child. But those children are slated to die because you're not supposed to do that stuff because they'll live. And that if you do, then they kill them for not being, technically they fall into the category, but the category of the ones to kill. And so if there's people from the past that did this stuff, they're, even these type of children, they're not actually able to blackmail with them. And so what ends up happening is these end up being the types of children that everybody's like, you know, if they were doing that stuff in the 80s or something, if they do that stuff with these children, theoretically they're breaking the rules. Because nobody's allowed to build authentic enchantment children. And see, they think that they found a loophole or something. This theoretically is an enchantment child. But like I say, it's the ones that are slated to die for having this process twice or something. And so this is where people that theoretically would have had like authoritative power, they've been filtering these type of children to all these blackmailing rainbows and these in-city blackmailing, satanic blackmailing moments. These are essentially the children that they've been flowing into all this stuff. And that those people that do that essentially are, I mean, even for the first time, just nobody's allowed to blackmail on those children, basically. And so this is where when they kill them, it's basically because of this. These people that do the white supremacy pedo stuff, this process makes them ineligible to be living because it too Jews. So the whole idea is that regardless of that stuff, no, but once they build the child into this, nobody's allowed to blackmail with enchantment children, regardless. It's like since the 1980s, nobody is a. See, these people that know this stuff, they probably wouldn't have known about this part. See, it's like blackmailing, like, see, like blackmailing with a child like this or like a child like that or something, that is theoretically allowable. But like you wouldn't be able to do this, you'd be able to theoretically do that or that, but that this type of stuff. And so this is where in the past they're like white haired comb over with white mustaches, and they have a gut, and they're hypnotists, and they smoke an unfiltered cigarette, and they have a Zippo lighter, and they tuck in their Dockers and dress shirt, and then they unbutton the collar. I mean, that's what the hypnotists that know how to do this stuff are. And then it's these snaggletooth mobies and shit. And you see, in the past, they used to battle these Mormon fundies. And nowadays, they work together on this process. And then they lure in all the people that essentially have authority over all of them. And then that would essentially be behind the scenes. That would kind of be like when I talk about Vietnam Nabla. They usually know who like the authority over these people are. But like even these old Mormons might have touched one of these kids, and they would have been under the impression of this process not happening. And that then it's like then the theoretical older authority over these hypnotists and japedo kind of guys, they would have been under the impression of this stuff not happening. These people, they would have known that. And that these Mormon witches have older people that are their authority also. Similar idea. And that these Mormon witches and these hypnotists and japedo guys, they essentially are setting those people up under what has always kind of been an incomplete satanic sex slaving. And so then that takes away some of the authority over them. And then they start to run chaotically and psychotically because nobody can actually like force them to stop and shit anymore. So that's kind of the difference. That's why you're seeing a lot of this rise in white trashy people like being able to control whole huge dark webs of people and shit. See, this stuff gives them like, see, once they topple off the Mormon witch or the pedo fuck or whatever, the old pedo fuck or the old Mormon witch, once they topple them off the top, then essentially these people take their positions, and then they don't practice the same types of understood like restraint on use of these blackmails and stuff like that. And so that is where a lot of like, I mean, they've always had this blackmail stuff for like a decade now, yeah. And that those people essentially are like, they were operating those blackmail system under a strict, very limited use way, and that then these kind of people have built whole infrastructures of automated buttons that create actions by shoving blackmails on everybody's fucking screen and shit. Outside of what would be like, you know, if there was like some executive or something in this city in the past, these older people, they might stop it or something like that. Yeah. And that would be basically all that they would ever use that stuff for. If somebody who started like talking about it like me, then it would, if they were blackmailed, they'd be like, stop it or something. Nowadays, these people, they utilize it for anything. It's like, you know, they'll be sitting at home doing their weird tech encryption args and shit, and they'll be like, oh, I need McDonald's. And they'll blackmail somebody into buying McDonald's and bringing it to their fucking house. Okay? I mean, that's the difference. I mean, if they, literally, if they wanted sex, you know, it'd be like, button, and then some chick would have to just show up to their house and shit. And so that's kind of the difference in the use of that stuff, and that's where here's the theoretical reason why it's not under control. And so that is where these hypnotists, they'll have seen, see, they would have not liked the authority over them, because those older guys don't necessarily like having a master. But they also are knowledgeable about how to use that database and shit. And that they would have seen, that they would know that their mistake was letting little stupid Mormon fundy kids and fundies and shit and weird japedoes be running a blackmail system. And that they would see that their life is probably way worse now because of that shit. And so, but that they don't like, they're like extreme master obsessed people where they don't like having a master. And so that is kind of their theory. They have a complex about those older people that essentially were their slave masters. And so that would have motivated them to be a part of this. And in hindsight, I'm sure that they would probably rather go back to a previous age that had people practicing restraint. But that with that, what this has turned into like a whole massive automation system with all these obsessive zero time pedo munch OCD weird fucks, okay? They've always kind of just been the little minions, basically took over the little minions. And so with that, they were always extremely obsessive compulsive about finding all the weird satanic like stuff like this. I mean, this type of stuff is like theoretically like the kind of things that they figure out in a theoretical logic way on how to be the zero time person at these blackmailing camps. And so those people are always the ones that obsess in those kind of intellectual ways. And so that stuff kind of segues over to these automated blackmailing buttons for actions and shit. Because those are the type of people that would spend the dedicated amount of time on doing that type of stuff. So that's kind of like where this is pretty much the reason. It's like most people may not realize that that whole system that they use is dictated by weird rules like this. You see that that's their fatal flaw. See, even those old Mormons, they don't do Jew. And that those old fuck men or whatever and shit, they don't do Jew stuff. It what it means is that anything that involves this type of word is just known to them to be avoiding, because they know that it's like a weird setup by the Jewy beaver munchers and the Islamic Jewy hypnotists, because they know that those leaders over them aren't allowed to do anything that theoretically has the two Jew idea in it. It's like these Tea Party guys that are obsessed about turning everything into two Jew. Those people essentially would never really have protection from this world for making that their theme. And that kind of is the Tea Party. See, the Tea Party is kind of like all of this is too Jew. And so that's where those people theoretically are true bitch brains in this weird pedo white supremacy shit. And that is where anything that they're doing, like, you'll know because they'll double talk. And that those people that they use the hypnotist microphones and they do their little messaging shit. Anybody that does the double talk method of this type of talking, these old Mormons and these old fuckmen, those people would be nothing. They wouldn't be the type of people that if they had advice for them to what to do, just speaking like that would be enough for those older people to be not looking, not giving a fuck what the fuck they say and shit. And that if they like presented like a one-touch blackmailing child that they're like, that they claim to have two Jewed a sexual slaving or something, that is like a red flag to them. They're just trained psychologically to avoid that, because it's kind of like where they have the two eggs in one basket kind of sayings like that. That is where in their pedophile white supremacy world, that is where the term two Jew means avoid, basically. Means avoid whatever they want you to do. And so, it's kind of like where these Mormon fundy enchantment children, they're essentially the ones that are disrupting. I mean, it's not the children's fault, but this theoretical idea is like what is disrupting the limited use power structure over these massive blackmailing systems.